What's cracking, everybody? Welcome back to the channel. New video. Today, I'm going to be doing a reaction video on this channel. Those of you that are subscribed to my other channel, you know that's my reaction channel. But today, I'm going to be doing one here. And I'm going to be reacting to the 16 to Life channel. If you're not already subscribed, I am. If you're not already subscribed, do me a favor, go over there, check out his content, subscribe to the channel. He's a very laid back dude. His name's Chill. He did the same amount of time as me. We both did a little over 24 years. And he gives his perspective of his time and tells stories of things that he saw and experienced. So with that, I saw a little bit of this video the other day. I actually started this reaction yesterday, got interrupted, so I'm starting over today. Excuse me. So let's check out what Chill's got going on.
What's cracking, YouTube? It's your boy 16 to Life, and I'm back like I'm on a parole violation. Yard down! Now, for those of y'all that's new to my page, in 1994, I got arrested. I was eventually sentenced to 16 years plus life, and I served 24 years straight in the California prison system. During those times, I accumulated some good stories and some good insight on things related to prison. I'm going to share some with y'all today. If you like the story, be sure to hit the like button, leave a comment, subscribe, and most importantly, be sure to hit that notification bell, and that way anytime I drop a story, you'll be notified ASAP Rocky. You can hop on it whenever you're ready. Now let's hop right up into this video right here today. I've done 24 years straight in the California prison system. When I got released, one of the questions people would ask me a lot is, do I believe I have become institutionalized? And initially I would say no. I think part of the reason is I never put much thought into it. And also, in my mind, that word had a negative connotation to it, and I didn't realize I had became institutionalized, and I don't think I wanted to be connected to that. You know, I had saw myself come out pretty much the same as.
So, I guess for Chill, he feels he does have some qualities that would where he would fit under his definition of institutionalized, and me, myself, and my interpretation and just how I look at things, I don't consider myself institutionalized. I have met people in prison that were institutionalized, that are institutionalized. One thing about people who are institutionalized, they cannot make it in society. The fact that Chill has been out this many years and is not just out, but is successful, that to me says he's not institutionalized. The fact that I've been out almost 6 years now, and I'm a productive member of society. I've had a lot of success out here. I'm continuing to have successes. I follow the law. I follow the norms of society. I think those are ways of exhibiting your willingness to be a part of society and not being institutionalized. Now, I want to tell you guys something. I remember being in it was B Yard in Pelican Bay in 7 block, and my cellie was telling me about this dude. It was a white dude. He was a porter. He was out, sweeping and mopping. Older cat, and he was telling me how every time this old white dude got close to going home, he would stab somebody. He would get off and catch more time, catch new cases, do whatever he had to do to catch more time, right? And so he calls him over, and he's like, "Hey, man, hey, the next time you get close to going home, what are you gonna do?" He said, "I'm gonna whack somebody. I'm gonna get off." And he was like, "Hey, you don't ever want to get out?" He said, "For what? What do I want to get out for? To go be a burden on my daughter? To go be a burden on whatever family I have out there?" He said, "I don't have nothing out there. I don't have nothing going for me out there." He goes, "I'm cool. This right here, I'm cool with this. I can do this." That to me is an institutionalized person. People who have completely given up on society and instead feel comfort or comfortable in prison, to me, they are institutionalized. So that's just my long ass definition.
as I went in. But the more I started to be free, I did realize and become aware I had actually acquired certain habits that I had picked up in prison. And if we look at the word institutionalized, one of the definitions is simply um, conforming to a system. And so doing 24 years is a long time, you know. And I think if anybody does anything for a long period of time, they definitely will develop some habits, especially if they're serious about uh, whatever they're doing. Even though I have sometimes a playful demeanor or whatever, and I was, you know, somewhat playful in prison, or at least as much as I could be in that environment, one thing that I definitely was serious about was surviving. And so I think due to me taking my survival in prison serious, there are habits that I developed and picked up because of that, you know, in order to try to, I guess, raise my percentages of surviving in prison, you know. Um, One of the things that I become aware of uh, is when I'm out in public, people running up behind me. You know, I recall a time I was fresh out and me and my family, we had went to the Sizzler. I was in the bathroom washing my hands and somebody just came running up, like I believe it was a younger kid. He came running up towards the sink. And so I just automatically spent because, you know, when you're in prison, people don't run up behind you. One thing especially that happens a lot in California prison is people give you your space. You know,
Absolutely. I had this the same experience when I got out. When I first got out, I was doing construction, and then I got into my apprenticeship for my CNC machining. During that time, I was juggling a bunch of different delivery jobs. Right, I got I had a delivery. I needed drop off a delivery in a shopping center in San Diego, right? And I'm walking, and next thing you know, on my left hand side, I just hear running. Right, I heard somebody running, and I spun. It's like you said. It's your natural instinct. It's go time. I spun around, and it was a little kid. And in my head, I was like, damn, this kid don't even know. Like, it could have been, I could have fucked up right there, right? And luckily, no one else noticed that I went from normal to extremely aggressive in an instant, because he's right. It's not normal, but for us it was, right? And he's correct. In the CDC, no one runs up on you unless they're really running up on you, right? Even when you're on the track, when you're out on the yard and you're on the track, there's a painted line around the track, and people jog inside that line. People are walking on the rest of the track. So if you hear somebody running up on you, then you know. But you know, there's a lot of things. I don't know if he goes into this, but even when you see people on the streets and they're jogging and maybe they have to spit, and you'll see, you know, or they're whatever. But I notice out here when somebody spits, they could just be talking to somebody and just turn their head. They'll just turn their head and spit and just keep walking, right? Which is, you know, that's normal out here. You will not do that in prison. You're not going to just be, especially, you know, you could be caught up in a deep conversation with somebody, and you know, you're in and you got to spit. You're not going to turn your head and spit. You know why? You might spit on somebody without meaning to. In prison, you spit right in front of you. Put your head down, spit. And that's, you know, they'd be like, what the fuck is he talking about? I'm just saying, those are the little things you learn in there. You're very careful with the things that you do and how you conduct yourself, because it can turn into something where the whole yard explodes.
they give you a certain amount of space, and the only time you're really gonna have somebody running up at your back behind you if you're out there walking laps on the track or you're running yourself on the track. Also, another thing I noticed I developed is um, when I was in prison, I had a habit of when I was walking on the track and someone was coming near me or coming towards me to look down and observe their hands,
Mm.
see if there was something in their hands, if their hands was in their pocket.
Again, I think everybody does that though, right? If you've been to prison, and I think it's normal. Myself, not only did I look at their hands, I looked at their waistbands as well as their pockets. And when you're in there, you know where people are going to hold something, where they can get to it, and so you do a quick scan. A lot of times it's not just that. It's 9 times out of 10 when somebody's going to do something, you're going to see it. Their skin's going to be a different color because the adrenaline's pumping, right? There's different tells. If you pay attention to shit in there and you've been around it, you can read the body language, right? But he's right, and it isn't a thing out of fear. It's a thing out of being smart. You could be on the yard not doing nothing wrong, but dudes go crazy in there. Dudes could go on a run doing drugs in his cell and believe, like, he could be your neighbor and he's been tweaking, and in his trip you disrespected him, and in his mind he's got to kill you. So it's always smart, you always in there, um you check everything out. But that's just like me, and I'm sure he's gonna say the same thing. In any life, for anybody that's done time on a level 4, level 3, um you're observant of everything and everyone around you. um in my daily life out here, I'm constantly scanning everything because I did in there. Driving, I don't know, anything I do. I go into a restaurant, anything. I come out of my pad. I know where the guy is walking his dog, who's watering something. You know what I mean? Like, you pay attention to everything. These are things that are for our self preservation behind the walls. I think they're actually good habits. Especially in this day and age where we have had some terrorist acts. You have school shoot. You have different people. You have people. You had that guy not too long ago just drive up to the store and just start dumping on everybody. I don't know if this type of stuff can help, but I mean, it won't hurt when you're observing and you're seeing everybody and everything around you.
This also became a habit. Another thing that I developed in prison is being aware of my surroundings.
Mm-hmm.
Observing where I'm at. Always just turning my head and looking and paying attention. In Swahili, the Swahili word is usalama. It basically means keeping security on yourself. And I had a homie that used to say, you don't have to worry about nobody else keeping security on you if you keep security on yourself. I definitely think that was one of the things I was hyper vigilant about. Even now to this day, now that I'm free, when I'm out jogging or whatever,
Mm-hmm.
and though it may seem a little crazy, when I'm jogging, and I come to where I have to cross the street, if there's a car coming and the car waves me on, I tell him no, go ahead, because in my mind, I'm just not gonna put my life in somebody else's hands. What if this dude just decides to just drive forward while I'm jogging, even though he told me to come on?
That goes back to what I was saying. In there, you could know what's going on in your mind, but you never know what's going on in the next man's mind. And like he's saying, if they tell him not, go ahead, and he's like, nah, you go ahead. It's the same as far as in there. When you check in your surroundings, you're checking people's waistband, their hands, you're making sure. You don't know if the motherfucker went crazy. So to me, that's similar to what I was saying.
And run me over? What if this dude happens to have, a seizure or something like that right at the time that I'm going across the street? So I try to, as much as possible, I would say dictate my destiny, in terms of stuff like that, even though it may be a little hypervigilant. And I think in one of the definitions that I saw about being institutionalized, that was one of the traits of being institutionalized, hypervigilance. Also, I think a part of being institutionalized is accepting and adopting, at least being around, or adapting to at least being around violence, because there's a lot of violence in prison. um, I think it may be harder for a person who doesn't necessarily come from a background where he's either gang banging or he's in the streets, because when you're gang banging, or when you're in the streets, and especially when you're gang banging, violence is something that's condoned, encouraged, and sometimes, you get respected for being violent. So for a person who doesn't come from that background, I do think that um, that's something that
Absolutely, you do absolutely get earn respect through violence in there. I remember being in certain places, and somebody would land, and somebody would be like, "That author right there is a fool, man." I remember he did this, and that's why I say in prison, especially out here in California, a man's reputation will always precede him. You know, um, there would be dudes coming out of the shoe, and word would come before you even hit the yard. So and so's coming. They would have a care package ready for him, right? I, there's also times where you'll hear somebody say the exact opposite, extreme opposite. I mean, I knew that Vato when we were in YA, or hey, I was over in this other joint. Have Vato right there is a sucker. You know what I'm saying? So, absolutely, your violence as well as your lack of violence in prison is noted and discussed.
is a part of being institutionalized, is learning how to adapt to that type of stuff. I told a story when I first got to prison, my very first prison, Salinas Valley. I had caught the chain with a guy, and when we got to that prison, he had someone, an older person who was from his hood that he had grew up with, who came out, embraced him, gave him a lot of items to get situated, and maybe a month or two later, um, I guess they had got the word that the guy, the older guy who had came out and brought the guy, items and stuff to get him situated, had done something else in another prison, and he needed to be stabbed. And the dude that was gonna stab him was the dude who he brought the stuff out to. The dude who did stab him, is the dude he brought that stuff.
And that's common in there. As Chill and I were saying, when somebody walks up on you, you're looking at their hands, their waistband, their pocket, whatever. I'm also, like I said, looking. Uh, is there like a difference to their skin color? Do they look like they got their adrenaline pumping? Do they look nervous? But unfortunately, there are some people who, in prison, they learn the hard way. When it's a friend of theirs or a homeboy that they grew up with, they relax that. They're like, if it's a dude they don't normally kick it with walking towards them, their guard is up. When it's their homeboy, their guard is down. That's why it's your friend that is gonna get you, because he's the one that can get closest to you. So this isn't a surprising story. This is actually the norm. The guy that you're closest to is who's probably gonna get asked to handle you. Depending on the situation, that's not always the case, but that's usually the case. And it's the reality of prison.
Out to. And so seeing that, it made me just have like the realization, like, damn, that prison is extremely cold, because I'm from a small town. I grew up in a small town, and um, a lot of my friends I've been knowing all my life. And so I think that's one of the things that was somewhat of a detriment to me in prison. When I befriend a person, we friends. I'm not supposed to do no sneaky stuff, no underhanded stuff. I'm willing to give you the shirt off my back if you come and ask. And I think that in prison I had to learn that that was something that I couldn't do, because you may think a person is cool, or you just really don't know a person. You may be good friends with a person for a year or two, and then on one day in particular, the dude does something that's extremely out of character or something that you didn't see coming. And so I think that's another thing. Because earlier today I was thinking about some of the things that I seen in prison, a lot of the violence, and a lot of the times I just just accepted it as a part of prison. But today I don't necessarily know if it would be that easy for me to turn my head. That reminds me of a time when I first got to the county jail. I hadn't probably been in there 5 or
I wanted to say something real quick, and I might end on that. Um, the normalization of violence for the majority of us, like he was saying, if you're from, you're a gangbanger or you grew up in the streets, the normalization of violence for the majority of us started in the home, and then into the streets. And when we go to prison, we are pretty much desensitized. And I've said it before and I'll say it again. There was a saying in there: better him than me. Self preservation is a motherfucker. I trip out when people say they don't know how to swim. And I'm like, have you been in the water? Because I guarantee your motherfucking arms and legs start fucking swinging and doing what you got to do because of self-preservation. It's when panic takes over when you drown, right? Anyways, this video I think is long enough. I think you guys get the gist of what he's saying. And if you want to see the rest of it, again, make sure you go to the 16 to Life channel, subscribe. Check out his content. He's got a lot of good stuff. He's a humble dude. I've spoken to him several times. He's always the same man. Shout out to you, Chill. Congratulations on your success on your channel. And everybody, please be safe, be smart, and tell the ones you love that you love them. I'm out.